Welcome back. I'm now joined by Matthew Warren from our business desk. Hello again, Matthew. Starting here in France, where measures to improve the performance of the French economy are being presented to the government a little bit later on.
Yes, that's right, Claire. Back in July, Louis Gallois was asked to put together a report on competitiveness. Now, Gallois is well known here in France. He used to run the state railway company and also EADS, the huge aviation company. Now, he's talked of the need for a competitiveness shock for the French economy. And as you say, later this Monday, he'll be outlining why that's required and what he proposes.
Louis Gallois has stayed behind the scenes up until now. But the findings of the industrialist are being eagerly awaited by French business leaders, unions and politicians, all focused on halting the country's long slide in competitiveness. During the 90s, France exported more than it imported. But since the year 2000, the trend has been in reverse and the trade deficit's just getting deeper. Labour costs also weigh heavily on the economy. Sandwiched between Belgium and Luxembourg, wage costs here are the second highest in the Eurozone. Gallois is expected to suggest lightening the load on employers and also focusing more on innovation. Over the years, businesses here have been investing less money in research and development. Today, it's barely 2.3% of GDP compared to Germany's 2.8%. Business lobbyists say that things have got to change.
It would be an immense deception if Louis Gallois doesn't recommend that a significant competitiveness shock is quickly put in place.
But there's already skepticism that shock proposals will electrify the labour market anytime soon. Gallois is expected to suggest trying to reduce labour costs by hiking consumption taxes, and the socialist government's not keen on that idea. It will be presenting its response to the report on Tuesday.
Now, Georgia touched on this in her report, but what is it likely to contain then, the report?
Yes, you're right. She mentioned there this talk about a 30 billion euro relief really for employers in terms of the social charges they pay, which contribute such a lot to labour costs. That's been widely leaked. Also, there's talk of strengthening industrial clusters. Now, what that means is bringing together companies that operate in the same field, if you like, to help them operate better. That's something that's worked quite well in the aviation sector, which Gallois knows very well. Also, greater support for exporters. There are going to be lots of proposals in this recommendation. Now, the key thing is that on Tuesday, the government will be giving its own response both to the report and its ideas for competitiveness.
All right, you do have a story, though, about one French company that's doing really well and keeping most of its production in France.
Yes, that's right. Now, this is a company called Repetto. Not sure if I said that even correctly, but they make ballet shoes. At least that's what they were well known for in the past. Now they make more general shoes for women and sell them at quite a price as well. That's one company that's saying it's determined to keep its production mostly here in France.
This is what Repetto's famous for, ballet shoes handmade for Paris opera dancers. But these days, the company makes its profits elsewhere. High-end ballet flats sold at around 160 euros a pair. Repetto has more than 450 models, most of them made here in the Périgord region of France. And the company is looking to the future, training a new generation of employees in-house. The company wants another 150 shoe and dress makers within 4 years. Many of the current trainees were previously unemployed, but they now have a full-time job in sight.
Nowadays, the luxury sector works well. There is high demand for luxurious products.
Repetto has increased its distribution around the world. It's also diversified its production with handbags, clothing, and perfume. They're not all made in France, but the firm's CEO believes the company's French legacy is good for business.
When you travel around the world, you realize that the most visible French brands are luxury brands. And manufacturing in France is necessary when you are a French luxury brand. The fact that we make many of our products in France opens many doors abroad.
Repetto is hoping to boost revenues by 20% this year. a green shoot in otherwise grim economic times.
We're going to move to Asia now and signs that the Chinese economy is picking up.
Yes, last week we had data showing that manufacturing was at least bottoming out possibly in China. Today it is data on the services sector, which is looking pretty perky. This is the PMI data. Anything above 50 is an expansion. It's at 55.5 for October. As you can see there, up on September.
How are the market's looking, Matthew?
Well, there was a sell-off at the end of the week on Wall Street. That was despite some decent numbers on new jobs created. All the markets finished down, and Asia's taken its cue, despite the good news there about China as well. Asia also slipping back in trading today, as you can see there. I can also give you some news from Toyota, the Japanese car company. They saw their sales falling by almost half in October in China. Now, that's, of course, because of this boycott from the dispute that's happening between Japan and China. But despite that, they managed to report profits trebling in the latest quarter. They've also raised their full-year profit to $9.7 billion. Investors like that. Shares up just over 2% in Tokyo.
Now, finance ministers are meeting in Mexico City, and they have the American debt problems on their mind.
Yes, they do. Now, they are very worried about this thing called the fiscal cliff, which we've talked about a lot. Now, that is a package of tax cuts and spending cuts that will come into effect automatically in the US if they don't get their debt problems sorted out by the end of the year. There are fears that that will push the world economy back into recession. Finance ministers, G20 finance ministers in Mexico City, not surprisingly worried about that. Let's take a listen to the Indian finance minister on the subject.
The US has to find answers to its fiscal cliff. Whoever is elected president on Tuesday would have to work with the US Congress and find answers.
Now, Cuba is out of bounds for Americans, but that's not stopping its businesses attending a trade fair there.
That's right. The Havana International Trade Fair's got 62 countries attending. One of those is the US, despite rules that ban American citizens from traveling to the country. We can take a listen to a representative from the USA Rice Federation telling us why he's there.
I think it's very important that we're here in the show representing U.S. rice. Cuba was the largest market for U.S. rice back in the late 50s. Cuba imports a lot of rice every year. Cubans love U.S. rice. We've imported here in the years past, and we hope to do some more exporting of rice to Cuba in the future.
And that's it for business. Thanks very much, Matthew. Thank you for watching. Do stay tuned to France 24.